Hello everyone, welcome to BANLIST prediction for the February 2024 KC Cup. Before I get the video further, I need to reassess something that I just said. This is going to be a prediction video mostly, which means that if you see your favorite deck on there, you don't get to go, oh, well, you put my favorite deck on there, it's bad, you just play the game in the comments, just what I think Konami is going to do. Again, for the most part. So I'm gonna discuss some hits, some unhits that I think Konami might do, and my personal thoughts on like each and every one of these. So here we go. First, for the limit ones, I think Konami is gonna have to bite the bullet and realize that maybe, just maybe, Tachyon was a mistake. Maybe there shouldn't be a deck that gets to activate an Omni-Negate from hand on their very first turn, or even going second if they happen to draw it and get into the Galaxy's Photon Dragon, especially considering they can just search it with a skill. So I think this is part of the reason why Tachyon Transmigration is a level up reward card to begin with. Because, you know, Konami thought, oh, that's a strong card, we can just give it for free and then limit it when it proves to be too much. Too much is now, and this card needs to be put to 1, so it conflicts with like Feldgrand, but also conflicts with the second hit, Giant Coach McGurk. So Giant Coach McGurk is like one of these cards that back in 2022 pushed DDD to like top tier status. There were a couple of other cards, but Giant Coach McGurk basically giving DDDs a completely 3+3 for like combo extension or just drawing back row was kind of insane back in 2022, and it's still kind of insane now that there's actually a good deck that can abuse this once again, you know? It's not selection box locked anymore, we don't need it. So, goodbye, Giant Coach McGurk. Limited 2, I think 10 years outlived its usefulness. I think Konami looks at 10 years like, why are people still playing this super cheap deck that we released a couple of months ago? We need to make it unplayable somehow, and I think this is the way that they're gonna do it. I don't think 10 years is particularly problematic in this meta. I think it's one of the more fair and fun deck to face. You know, it's just my opinion though, so I kind of hate this change if it were to happen, but I think whether or not it happens depends on Tenny's performance in this KC Cup, as I think Tenny is one of these decks that is naturally going to get power crept relatively soon. I'm not sure because it's still like a decent contender, especially because it's not skill dependent and can run decks that other decks can't run, like kaijus and stuff. What they say, nothing good lasts forever. Limited 3, there's a bunch. We're starting with the Zombie Girl. I think Squire is going to get limited 3 because, you know, it's an old card, and Konami is going to be like, well, Shiranui is going to perform well at the KC Cup, so we need to give them a slap on the wrist kind of enough, you know, because the deck is still too recent to properly demolish, but just recent enough that we can give it a little, you know, and call it a day. Also falls within that logic of like not allowing the best deck of the format to play limited 3 back row, and I think like this is a decent kind of hit that will force Shiranui to like drop the crackdowns and IDPs and compulsors, you know. Speaking of, I think Yukio and Link 3 also gonna be put to limited 3. This is a hit to both Shiranui and Mayakashi because Shiranui is playing this card as part of the setup that ensures that you can still summon the Shogun Saga or Sen Saga. I think it's Shen Saga level 10-1. In order to pop a card on the field relatively easily without having to worry about your Shiranui Squire Saga being disrupted and like Forbidden Droplet or Chalice. And Mayakashi is like a potent deck, and I think this falls within this range of like removing limited 3 back row from powerful decks. So I think this is like completely fair and decent enough to both decks that will keep them playable, but like take them down a notch a little, which I think is Konami's intent with the first hits that every deck receives on the ban list. Speaking of removing limited 3 back row from powerful decks, Constellars and Life Twins can both eat it. Sombra is like the best combo starter the deck has access to, and it's a deck that is capable of like drawing up to 2 cards on their first turn with Star Chart, because you can bounce the Star Chart back to hand with Pleiades and then make another Xyz, which is kind of a sick play actually. But I don't know. I maybe Konami doesn't think that these decks have access to limited 3 back row. Same go for Light Twins. I've seen many people be like, oh, secret password should get hit, which is like a terrible idea because people are just going to drop secret password because it's not actually that good or worth playing at all, you know? So I think like Evil Twin Kisser Kill in particular being the one combo piece that draws you an additional tech during your combo is more likely to get hit. And I think like these would be fair hits. These decks are maybe not as powerful as they used to be because of Tachyon specifically dominating this KC Cup format, but if Tachyon gets nerfed and Shiranui gets nerfed and Mayakashi gets nerfed, it would be silly to not have these decks get nerfed as well, because then they become the obvious best decks. That and Tenyi, but then again, we talked about Tenyi again in nerfed for being too old, simply too old. Speaking of old decks, I think Rocket's time has come. I don't think Rocket is a problem deck in this format. Not at all. This deck is completely manageable. Its sideboard hasn't evolved in a couple of months, well, pretty much since 10-year released, actually, because I don't think they got any new tools. This deck is completely fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with the deck, except for the fact that it has been around for a year or so, and it's still being played, and Konami sees this and they're like, wait, this is eating into our profit margins for Selection Box Mini 17, where we'll release cards from a deck that Rocket counters somehow, I don't know. So I think Konami is going to see Rockets still being playing in this KC format. I don't know if it's going to like perform well, but it is going to see some play. And then going to be like, you know what? We don't want this deck to be played anymore at all. We're going to completely demolish this deck, give them the good old Karakuri treatment, you know? Bam, bam, limited 3 on Tracer and quick launch, because fuck you if you play this deck, is what Konami is saying. If you're a Rocket player, I have no beef with you. I love you, Rocket players, but Konami hates you. And last but not least, we're rating Tachyon again, because Tachyon should not have access to an Omni-Negate, but it should not have access to limited 3 back row either. It's insane that they just released this deck in the States. And I think Galactic Spiral Dragon is like the best card to hit from Konami's standpoint, because it's a free-to-play card. It's a free-to-play card. It does a lot for the deck, allows it to go into a Giant Coach McGurk to begin with, and then just free extender that doesn't Dragon Lock you like Nebula Dragon does. So this being hit makes a lot of sense to me. Now for the unhits. This part is going to be a bit more wishlisty, because there's really no telling what Konami could or could not decide to unhit. Like, they've removed the Karakuri stuff from the ban list, but not the Cyber Dragon stuff. They removed Femtonites and Speed Droids like seconds after they've been hit. But somehow Rhinoceros is still limited 2, even though the limit 2 list doesn't matter anymore. So we should just wait, is Rhinoceros still limited 2? I need to check something real quick. Yep, Rhinoceros is still 2. I never doubt it. Anyway, all of these cards could be taken off the ban list completely and nothing would change about the meta. I wanted to give DDD Savant Thomas back exactly because the reason why this card was hit in the first place was because you could make Giant Coach McGurk. But with Giant Coach McGurk on the limited 1 ban list and conflicted with Felgrand, I think this card is safe to come back at unlimited. And this is a buff to DDD, but I don't think it makes like DDD meta threatening. I think it makes it a decent rogue-ish deck at best, you know? Some skills changes. Both of these skills are kind of problematic for different reasons. One of them a lot more than the other. Starting with the easy one first, Eternal Bonds. I don't think you should be able to add cards from thin air from like an unlimited amount of time. You know, I think there should be a limit to how much magic you can just make happen with your yellow button. So being able to add Miracle Contact on it twice per duel, I think would be a fair change. You know, Bubel Neos is a very aggressive deck, so realistically, you should not be able to win the grind game and have more Miracle Contacts for even more fusion down the line. And I think it still keeps the deck reasonably powerful. It's not a huge meta contender right now. It's kind of an annoying deck to face on ladder, but it's not that big a deal, so, you know, it's a fair adjustment just to improve the philosophy of designing skills, to have, like, a decent amount of thoughts put into them for good card advantage, you know? Then you need to put something, some restriction, to make it so the skill feels fair and balanced. Speaking of! Tachyon Dragon Domination is a huge mistake. It's a waste of digital ink, and there should be so many fixes to this. First of all, I don't think you should be able to play anything other than dragons in the deck. And you look at me like, well, you already can't. But yes, you can actually. You can play hand traps. Why is the best deck of the format allowed to play hand traps? This is stupid. Also, you get a free set. You just get to set something for free. It doesn't take your normal. What the fuck? I think a fair, like, counterbalance to that would be to prevent the monster that is being set and monsters with the same name from activating their effect this turn. So that if you set Nebula Dragon, you're fucked, basically. And last but not least, I think like the third part of the skill is obscene. Like there's some degenerate combo where you can crack down or mind control something and immediately return your opponent's card to their hand or extra deck if it's an extra deck monster, and just plus this way, which is insane. So I think you need to both control Galaxy-Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which also would make sense lore-wise, you know, so that you can just search the Tachyon Transmigration and then go into Tachyon Eyes Dragon Galaxy Gun and have an Omni ready for any disruption for the rest of the term, which is silly. And also you need to own the monster that you're returning to hand. Because even though you can't play Crackdown or Mind Control anymore with the Galactic Spiral Chain, I don't think this should be allowed. This should not be allowed. This should not be allowed. And last but not least for the changes, can we adjust the burn damage on Neos Rebel cards, please? Especially Ulti Nightmare and Neos Wiseman. I don't think it makes sense that in a game where every single burn card does have damage, these cards get to do full damage because they were released before Zexal. There's a couple more cards like this. There's Ancient Gear Tank, I think there's 600 burn damage, but it's like a bad card that you'd never play. There's Flame Wingman, which was played for a time before people figured out that, you know, Sunrise was actually a better card. It just doesn't make any sense to me that these cards that do see play, even if they're not as competitive as other cards, don't get the reduced burn damage treatment that we gave Lava Golem all the way back in 2021, just because they're from before that time. It's stupid. It is stupid. Alright, that's it with the prediction / wishlist video. Do you agree with my predictions? Do you think I'm right on these? Do you think Konami is bold and smart enough to do all the changes that I'm thinking? Also, do you agree with my reasoning for these proposed prediction and changes? Let me know in the comments. I will see you guys and girls, non-binary pals, next time.